Welcome to Level Up Tribes. Level Up Tribes provides resources to help you attain the necessary resources to level up your mind, body, and soul and realize your full potential. It is about exploring, learning, providing you with the tools from the experts for you to create a better version of yourself. I am your host, Agnes Goodwine, and welcome, Tribes. Hi, beloveds. Today's special guest is Ross, known in the United Kingdom as Yoga Ross. Conversing with Ross was like having a one-on-one with a longtime friend. Her spirit is super welcoming, and if we wasn't in different time zones, we would have probably talked for hours. Over the years, Ross has invested time in teaching classical yoga, somatic yoga movements, and Pilates. But she has added another pillar, and that is to serve as a mentor for newly certified yoga teachers. She is offering mentoring support to new teachers who have just completed their yoga teachers training and or are feeling the need to talk about their experiences, concerns, or worries about starting their teacher journey. Her Facebook group page, Teachers Together with Yogaros, is a safe space for newly qualified yoga and Pilates teachers to grow and learn. I hope you enjoy the episode. Let's dive in. Welcome to Level Up Tribes podcast. Please share with us your story and what led you to becoming a yoga teacher.
Well, like a lot of people, Agnes, I came to yoga through an accident. Actually, I had a fall down some stairs, and my back went. And I was a worker in an office, and I was working all the hours. And I went to an osteopath, and he said that my back was very stiff, and maybe I should try yoga. You know, he said maybe you should just go to yoga class and see how you get on. And at that point in time, I didn't really know much about yoga. So I went to that class and really did enjoy it. And then I just became involved in yoga. And for 4 entire years, I was there every week. During that time, I became really passionate about reading about yoga. I would hang around after class and talk to the teacher, help her, you know. So
Awesome.
Yeah, I just fell in love with it.
How many times did you practice yoga?
Obviously, the class in those days, Agnes, because I'm going back 20 years.
Yeah.
And in London at that point, a lot of yoga classes were 2 hours in duration. So you had time for physical, you had time for meditation, there was time for breathing. My particular teacher used to end every class with inversion. And then, you know, you would settle into Shavasana. And then once I realized that it was a lifestyle choice, I started practicing probably about 3 other times a week on my own. I think I was really inspired by the other people in the yoga class. So many different bodies, so many different ages, and everyone was gaining something from the class.
What was that pivotal moment that said, I'm going from a student now to a teacher?
Well, to be fair, I hadn't even thought about teaching. And my teacher basically said to me one day, you know, Roz, you have so much skill at yoga and you've got so much passion. I think you should go and teach and train. And I actually laughed. I actually said to her, but you're the teacher. And she said, but you can train. And so at that time, I was a little bit unsure. And she pointed me to her organization, which was the British Wheel of Yoga, which at that time and still to this day is a very well reputed organization in the United Kingdom.
Okay.
So I had 2 small children and I was still working for a London company, but I was freelance. And I was kind of thinking about what she said to me. And that summer, my company was relocating to a different county and I wasn't going to move, obviously.
Yeah.
And so by the autumn of that year, I had started the foundation course and it just kind of seemed like fate.
I love it.
Change, you know?
Yes. And now, 15, 20 years later, here we are.
Yeah.
What a beautiful journey. And I like the fact that you have 3 pillars that you focus on, and you're very talented in other areas like classical yoga, restorative yoga. You have the yoga, you have the Pilates, and you have the somatics. How does those 3 pillars work in your mission as a teacher?
How do you combine those three modalities?
Initially, to be honest, Agnes, they were certainly the yoga and Pilates was quite separate.
Okay.
So, you know, my yoga clients came for yoga class. My Pilates clients came for Pilates class. So I kind of kept it separate. And then I started to recognize how well they complemented each other. And this was before we had those fusion classes in the studio, like yoga lattes and, you know, all those fusion blends. So sometimes in a yoga class, I would be focusing on the fact that students needed to understand a little bit more how to engage the core or to activate conditioning of their muscles and strength. Because I think in the earlier days, clients used to think that to come to yoga, you had to be really, really flexible.
I was one of those.
So, you know, they would ring me and inquire about the class and say, is it okay if I come to class? And I say, okay, find a little bit out about the person. Oh, but I'm really stiff. And I would say, well, that's perfect. You're exactly the kind of person that needs yoga. So I started to blend in a bit of the Pilates methodology. And then in 2014, when I met Tanya from Aligned Somatics, and I was having some back trouble again, and I particularly was suffering from sciatica, I'd started looking into Feldenkrais and the Feldenkrais technique to work with more of the sensory and the neuromuscular input of movement. And then I went on that journey and started to recognize how so many stressed out people don't always just need to find a yoga posture or a yoga movement, but they need to try and embody their practice. And somatic movement offers the practitioner a much deeper sensory experience, like really the felt sense of posture. And even if it's a micro movement, like how you can intuitively just move a little bit differently within maybe a classical pose and find a new inquiry into your body and mind. So I think it actually enhances the spiritual aspect of yoga.
And so somatic is more like a brain muscle connection?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So say, for example, you were trying to access Paravritti Trikonasana, like a revolved triangle pose, which is quite intermediate to advanced in my personal opinion. You might want to be guiding your students to work with rotation of the rib cages. I tend to like to use the word rib baskets more than cages, because I don't like to think that we are trapped inside the cages of the ribs. But essentially, I might begin my practice with the students in supine or semi-supine, and we might be exploring some freedom of movement around the shoulder, the collarbones, and into the rib baskets, and breathing and moving through side lying, rotation, and things like that, so that they get a feel for how that thoracic area needs to free up the rotation. And then we might progress up towards the standing. And when they're in that Paravritti Trikonasana, maybe they might have more of a sense of the benefit of that posture in terms of rotation, because often in yoga class, especially if we're in Surya Namaskara or Sun Salutation, which I personally love, a lot of it is alternate extension and flexion. So during the day, in our working day, we don't actually get a lot of lateral flexion, side to side, or rotation. And so sometimes we need to free ourselves in those other spinal movements. Somatic movement offers a lot of inquiry into your connection to your own spine. It's an incredible field of work. It's a massive body of work out there. And what I do with my clients is sometimes we'll have like a 2-hour workshop where we just work through the pelvis, or we work into it. We're not isolating it, Agnes. We're working through the body, but by bringing that element of understanding, it only enhances your yoga practice. Actually, I believe brings it to a different level. But I could not have done somatics 20 years ago. You know, I was 30, I was a go-getter, I wanted to get moving, you know, and I think there's a time and a place and there's a stage. I don't always think it's the age you are, I think it's the stage you are.
Oh, I love that.
You know?
That's a good quote. I really like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know how, like, for example, I have a cousin who's in her 50s, but she's still single. And so she has more of that, you know, she doesn't want to lay down and do Pilates or do low impact exercise, you know. But then you could get someone who's 25, who's got a couple of children, who's mellowed out and really is stressed and needs that softer, gentle yoga.
Mm.
So sometimes we put people into those boxes in their demographics.
Yes.
We make a stereotypical judgment. Here is a stressed out corporate. She is 25. She needs this. She needs Ashtanga. She needs Iyengar. She needs Jiva Mukti.
When you actually need the opposite.
You need the balance.
Yes.
So what I used to say to my young clients when they came in and they wanted to move, and I said, what kind of yoga have you done, Agnes? And they said, oh, Bikram. And I said, well, I am as far from Bikram as you're going to get. You're going to get classical hatha, you're going to get shavasana, you're going to get mindfulness. And at the end, they would be like, oh, and I'd say, well, you know, if you're running at 100 miles an hour, yoga is about balance. Mm. So do you need to come to yoga and run around your mat at 100 miles an hour?
Good point.
And, and then they would stay. And if they exited, like I said in my blog, if they self-exit because you didn't approach it the way they wanted, that's fine. Yeah. That's actually fine. It's not personal. Yeah. They are not at the right stage for you.
Yeah. So who are you trying to reach?
My biggest mistake was trying to reach everyone. You know, I had so much passion for yoga. Yeah. I would have anyone in the class, you know, male, female, young, old, someone with a back pain, someone who is pregnant, you know, and over the years, you cannot be all things to all people.
Oh, yes.
You just can't. So over the years, you start to see, and this is why I want to mentor, you start to see certain types of client and student base coming in over and over, and you see that pattern. So I'll be honest with you, Agnes, I never knew about business. I never knew about niche. I didn't know about marketing like that. Essentially, I started to recognize that lots of people were coming, lots of females especially, who were all from the similar area of their lives. Mm. So for me, I don't think I was really forming a niche. I think they formed the niche for me.
Oh, interesting.
So they were creatives, they were freelancers. I had also been a freelancer. They had children, they were working moms, they were burning the candle at both ends. They were fun, they were lively, they wanted to get fit, but they wanted to be creative on their mat. They were open-minded. You could come to class and say, hey, tonight we're going to do this, and they would go, yay. You know, they didn't want routine. They didn't want to come in every week and just do the same old pose. They wanted change. And so that's why I've had clients for 10, 12 years. Okay. We've grown together.
Beautiful. I know one of your mission is to be working with new yoga teachers that have been certified. What is the best way for new yoga teachers to find a mentor, and why is finding a mentor so important for new yoga teachers from your point of view?
I think, Agnes, that it would be so good if I had had that opportunity when I started out. I just don't feel it was really in the yoga world as much. I mean, maybe I'm mistaken and I just missed it, but I did feel very alone at times. I had a lot of doubt because only I was discussing in my own mind, did I teach that inversion wrong or right, really? Did this go right? You know, there was I had so much inquiry to myself, and I was the only one answering my own questions. Yeah. So I think that while I had a good connection with another student on my teacher training, and I had some, you know, we had in-service training days at the British Wheel of Yoga. So each year, you know, you do your CPD. Yes. We have like days where you all meet up And I did have great connections with my actual teachers. And I don't think it was them. I think it could have also been me. But I think as a newly qualified teacher, it would be really helpful if either you stayed in touch with some of your teachers from your training, or teachers you meet in areas you're interested. So say, for example, you do really want to go down a yoga therapy route, or you want to teach yoga for cancer or trauma yoga. Maybe you meet someone there that then gives you a helping hand.
Yes.
You know, because when we join a company, there's usually human resources.
True.
There's departments, there's finance department, there's an advertising department. So when we set up our yoga business, we are all departments.
Yes.
And it's a lot.
Yes, it is.
It's really a lot to take on. And sometimes you just might have a really silly question and you hold it in, and it would have been easier to just ring someone like me and say, you know what, Roz, I had an incident in my class and I wasn't sure whether I handled it right. What do you think? And just to discuss those issues, I think.
Yes.
So the next week, when you go back to your student body, you feel clearer or happier about those decisions that you made.
Yes, I agree with you that I think that's an area that is really needed. I mean, coming from, I just graduated a couple of weeks ago, and I have, thank you so much. I'm so excited. And I agree with you. I love my teachers. I still have a relationship with both of my teachers. We were a very small YTT class, and I love my yogis. When I first started my journey in YTT, I didn't think I was going to teach. I just wanted to deepen my personal development and go deeper within myself and areas that I wanted to work on. But as I learned about the 8 limbs of yoga, and something birthed out of me during the class that said, maybe I do have a community that I can teach to.
100%, Agnes,
right?
100%.
Now it's just, like you said, trying to find those teachers in those different areas of yoga that I can reach out. Along with your other 3 modalities that you teach, are you going to incorporate maybe like a mentor program?
What I thought initially, Agnes, is I wanted to start informally, because I've already reached to a few student teachers. So a few students that were in my class have obviously gone on to teach.
Yes.
And so while they were on their YTT program, I would give them books, or I always offer them to teach my class, so that I have, you know, that experience of actually teaching class, because I think that is vitally important. And I think in the year of COVID, some of the YTT groups and some of the actual students have lost that opportunity to teach to their peers and to go into venues and to teach in studio. And I feel so sorry for students like that, because we also were taught how to adjust. So we were taught on our long diploma teaching how to touch bodies. And again, when I was working with Aligned Somatics, we were working in pair groups with other teachers, you know, understanding how to palpate, how to meet bone to bone, or, you know, how to work with joints and muscles. And so I would really like to begin with informal mentoring. In other words, so far I've just had phone calls with some of the students in my group. And then as we proceed, maybe I will evolve that mentorship differently.
Yeah.
But I would like it, Agnes, whether this is right or wrong, I just feel I would like it to evolve organically according to the needs of the students who come on board.
Yes.
Because just like our own class students, everybody has a different need.
Yes.
Now, if you're going to learn anatomy, there's 1,000 courses. If you want to go deeper into the Yoga Sutras, go and learn mindfulness. There's a lot of training now available, especially online and in person. and through books and through etc. But where I feel that some teachers are maybe requiring mentorship is teaching skills. I mean, that's just my feeling. So that's a little area that I feel I can help with.
Here's the big one, imposter syndrome.
Oh,
can you talk about that a little bit for those that are listening and don't know what yoga imposter syndrome is?
I used to just think it was self-doubt. I mean, I just personally didn't even know it had a name. Essentially, I think you and I love yoga. Every yoga person we know has fallen in love with yoga. And then whether their route has taken them down into other body movement therapies or other body movement disciplines,
yeah,
we want to share that. We feel we have the ability to teach. But I felt like as soon as I started teaching, so much doubt crept in.
Yeah.
And then as I started seeing other teachers, whether it was, you know, at a teacher training or at a workshop, or eventually then we got online, you know, so it was maybe on YouTube or something. I would certainly say that there's a thing which it's not really jealousy, but you would see these amazing bodies
Yes.
doing extraordinary postures and arm balances and freestanding handstands. I think, how on earth can I ever match this? And imposter syndrome, for me, I just feel like it was the name given to something I hadn't realized that was what I was personally struggling with. So even though I showed up for all my classes and carried on teaching, at the times when I wasn't in those classes, the doubt, the concerns, maybe you would call that overthinking, but they would be coming around and around, and eventually I think certainly it prevented me from moving forward. In recent years, I have read more about it, and I can reflect and recognize that I had so many of those attributes. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. I think that all through mindfulness, all through the yoga practices, you can work through it.
Yeah.
But essentially, what I really didn't actually realize, Agnes, and like a lot of things, like when you go into your trauma work, you'll realize this, it takes people a long time to unravel.
Yes.
So much of it is internal.
It is.
It's not about that handstand. It's so not about the posture. But it's
Ross,
about your mindset.
Ross, how did you find your confidence?
Imagine when maybe you first did just Setu Bandhasana, like a yoga bridge pose, and you had to just curl your pelvis and press through your feet and lift into pose. And sometimes you were fatigued or tired and just holding the pose or moving through the variations. But as you repeat, find your ease. So just like the student who is becoming familiar with the posture or the yoga vinyasa, teaching, you start to fine-tune your cueing ability, you're looking at your student body, and yes, you so learn from your mistakes. So when you maybe say, let's just move from this posture and we're going to transition here or whatever, and you notice everyone is looking at you like confused, you realize your language or your demonstration or the mixture of that has confused your students. They don't know what's in the lesson plan, Agnes.
Yes, that's true.
They don't know what you didn't put in. You might go home and reflect, oh, I missed out a part of my sequence.
Yes.
They basically didn't know. And they are just grateful. Remember, just like when you go to the theatre, they're in that audience. You're the one who's brave enough to stand on that stage.
That is true.
You know,
that is
and I
true.
just think it's like, it's not like a rehearsal, but in the first few months or even the first year of teaching, you are boldly going into those communities and sharing something so valuable. And eventually your students will they will spur you on, because they will say to you at the end of class, thank you so much, Agnes.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that tonight. Or the following week, they might show up and say, you know, last week I really did relax during the relaxation practice, or you really helped me with this because of the breathing technique that we learned. You know, so I think the community that you build, it will come to you, and your approach will be, you can find your voice in that way.
Yeah. So what is the best way for new yoga teachers to build or find their community?
I think it depends what area you're in. So I would say, first of all, if you are in an area where there are a lot of studios and a lot of teachers, it might be that you may have to have something a little bit different. You know, I know this might sound obvious, but obviously you're not necessarily just going to market your class and say yoga. If you're in a rural area, or most of the people in your area, perhaps in the evening, if you're going to an after work class, you notice there's dance class, Zumba, you know, fitness, I don't know. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
You might be okay, because yoga might be something unusual for that area.
Okay.
So first of all, I would say, have a general look around what is available in your area. And then I would also say that, how did you come to your yoga class? How did you find your teacher? So let's assume that you are maybe a young mom, and so you took your children to school or something, and you were able to go to class on a Saturday morning, because the time of that class was perfect for you, because the children were at, you know, their tennis club or something, I don't know, or the children were at, you know, football, so you were able to go to your yoga class. So I do think that practicalities, Agnes, are important. To research in your area, where is there something missing? Is there a class that happens at 5 o'clock when everyone finishes work? You know, so it could be that you build your community because you offer your actual locality a time and a place of the class that fits a gap. And then I would also say, like I said before, if you are a cyclist and you happen to be in a cycle club, then why not offer your cycle club a yoga class for cyclists? So you maybe start in a center that already has an audience that might be open-minded to try yoga.
Good tip.
I mean, the other thing that is, I've noticed, and it's different right now with COVID, but seniors, you know, there's a lot of older people who are a little bit isolated, or might be, again, I know it's not right now, but they might be visiting a community center or a day center or things like that. And you might be able to offer, if your niche was senior citizens or older retirees, you might be offering yoga to that population. So sometimes you can find a niche in special populations. Like we would know, Agnes, yoga for pregnancy.
Yes, wonderful, wonderful. So let's talk about, what are some creative ways you sequence or theme your yoga classes or any of your other yoga modalities?
I'll be honest with you, Agnes, I think when I first came out of teacher training, I used to work towards a peak pose. Does that make sense to you? When you might, for example, maybe you want to embrace heart opening, and so you would be looking towards some back bends and maybe camel pose, Ustrasana. So maybe you would work towards a peak. So quite a lot of the time, I think at the beginning of teaching, I used to work towards a logical peak pose. So I would try to make the poses very accessible to the group. So there would be the variations for all abilities. And then as time has gone on, and of course I've explored many, many different movement, like you say, modalities, I might now, I got very interested in the chakra system and also in yoga for the elements. So maybe, you know, working with the earth element and feeling grounded and working with those types of themes. And then when I went into the online field, so in Zoom, especially during 2020 when we all entered lockdown, and we had, of course, the most unusual year that we're experiencing.
That's true.
I started really delving a lot deeper into philosophical themes, like crafting a class that was all about determination, or poses that would help us to understand where is our safe spaces. And these were the classes that started to really resonate with my client base, because of course now, Agnes, I'm not teaching beginners at all. All of my current niche is existing practitioners. So I work very much with development. So I'm in a lucky, blessed, wonderful place, because I can work very deeply with my client base on mindfulness, meditation. I can work with philosophical themes, and because they will fully really understand the pose structure and they have a competent asana practice, we can delve deeper into areas even like satya, honesty, truth. You know, where do you find that truth when you're moving through your practice? And so my themes have gone on a journey as well.
Yes, I love all of them. I love the 8 limbs of yoga.
I love that too. And I read something recently that really, you know, I'm always going back to my books and always going back to some of the basics. I love as well to remind my students of the fundamentals as well as the more advanced things. And recently it occurred to me that asana limb 3 is just such a tiny element of those 8 limbs. You know, and we need that pratyahara. We need some of the dhyana dharana. We need to pause sometimes and really come to the inner spirit of yoga.
Yes. You know, I was on a Facebook group page. It's a yoga teacher close group page, and they post different questions on there. And there was a gentleman that said, it's samadhi, the first limb of yoga. And so it was kind of like a discussion back and forth. And, you know, the way I read it, it was the last. It's the last limb of yoga.
Yes.
Right? And then a lot of people were saying, well, and I was kind of surprised that some yoga teachers, you know, even said this, but they were saying, oh, why even teach it? Because we're never going to get there, you know? And I'm like, oh, you know, like, why would you even think that way? Because depending on what you go through as a human being and your trials and tribulations, you know, meditation alone can probably get you a little bit of the samadhi in your life that you might need, that connection with the higher source. And
absolutely. I agree. That's a bit defeatist, isn't it? I mean, and I think we can't over or underestimate our capabilities. I mean, you know, the koshas, like the layers, I've also heard that described the other way around. So the Vijnanamaya, the bliss center, often we talk about the physical layer and moving inwards. But if we were to say that that peaceful, blissful state was our birthright, and only as we go through our stages in life do we layer on the stress, we layer on the tension, we get the mortgages, we get the relationships, we get the everything, you know, the career, the boss that nags us or whatever. And that layers on those layers. In actual fact, when we came here and came to being, we were that blissful state. And as you say, Agnes, turn it the other way round and just think about how yoga is helping us peel away the layers so we return to our true self.
Oh, yes.
And for me, this is why yoga will always be in my life forever. Because I regard the mat as a sanctuary. I know that I also teach retreat, but I've told so many of my students, they used to say, why don't you take us on retreat? Why don't we go on retreat? And I used to say, especially when the imposter syndrome was there too, but the doubt. And I would say, because we can retreat on our own mat. We can retreat in our own mind. We don't need to get on a flight or go to some kind of so-called paradise beach. We can find that on within the border of our own yoga mat. And for me, being able to share the love of yoga through Zoom and in person has become so much more vital in this year of COVID, Agnes, because that community, it's like we've threaded together, we've knitted together so much tighter because of all of this challenge that's globally affected us.
Yes.
And I'm super grateful for the technology that's allowed us to do that.
What surfaced for you through this pandemic?
I would say, in a very strange way, Agnes, every year I try to have a focus word or a theme in my whole life. And over the last couple of years, because I was with a business coach, she really pushed that, you know, the vision, your goals for the year. So in the beginning of January, I would start my diary for 2020 and I had change. So my word was change. I needed to change, Agnes. I needed to challenge myself and move forward, and COVID absolutely gave me clarity. Wow. You know, life is so short.
Yeah.
In mindfulness, as John Kabat-Zinn says, we embrace the present moment. We embrace every day as if, not as if it was our last day, but we try to see, feel and sense the special nature of every moment and every day. And every day is just moments and moments that connect together.
Yes.
And although COVID has been traumatic and disastrous for some people, and obviously some people have gotten very ill, etc., for me and for many of my students, it's given us so much clarity. We can't be doubtful. We can't keep procrastinating and not making decisions. Just make that decision. You know what? That decision will be the right one. There is no such thing as a wrong decision. There is only decisions. Wow. So take action, go for it, do the things you love, do what you need to do, keep giving, keep sharing.
Yes.
And it will fall into place. And I understand the economic struggle. I so understand that. But actually, money is just another energy.
Yes.
And so I have given away a lot of free classes. I have advertised on my website that if you've lost your job through COVID, you are struggling, don't please let that mean you can't come to my classes.
Okay.
That's you know, good. Because I don't want people to suffer any more than they already are. So eventually that person who comes along for free, who we have an arrangement, you know, whoever that is might contact me, and it's a confidential situation, as they don't have to tell anyone else.
Right.
But one day they will be back in a different form and maybe come to a workshop with me, or, you know, so I'm not suggesting every newly qualified teacher offers donation class or free. I'm in a position that I have some loyal students, Agnes, but I do think that I do believe in karma, and I do believe in seva and service, and that we are here sometimes to offer what we can.
Yes, it's been a tough year. So Ross, how were you able to successfully pivot to teaching online this year?
The first 2 weeks. No.
Rough.
The worst thing was that I know, you know, I have a studio, which is my garage. So I don't know if you have the same word. Like
a garage?
Yeah. So a few years ago, I asked my husband to just make it a space for one-to-one coaching, which he did. So I had put the tripod and the phone and the big light, and, you know, I got the setup.
Yeah.
Because I was going to start filming some classes for my YouTube channel, and just because of this word of 2020 for me, change, I thought, let me start filming again. So I got this filming guy to come round, And I'd arranged for him to come at about 4 weeks before this whole COVID thing happened. So he came on this is no lie, he came on the Friday to me to set up the stuff in my studio. And by the Monday, we were in lockdown or something crazy. So it was just lucky. And then over the weekend, the equipment arrived because he brought his equipment, and then I kind of ordered the same similar stuff.
Okay.
So on the Monday night, I always teach this regular group. So I contacted them all by, phone and said, can you come to class tonight by Zoom, and we'll do a free class as a focus group, and we will feed back how you found it. So we get on the Zoom, and then this one's trying to get on, and then, we got on and did the class. Halfway through, the Wi-Fi disconnected.
Oh my God.
So I was going, are you still there? And then we can't hear you, Roz, and then, so through the first week, Agnes, I did it all on focus group. I just invited different people to come on, and we would work through it. Then I did one on my desktop. Let's try it on the laptop with all the, all the gallery view.
Mm-hmm.
Hilarious. I mean,
Really?
I'm looking at students going, Anne, I can see your leg. And then like someone's like, hello, we can see Shirley's arm, and it's everyone's trying to set up their screen, Agnes, it was hilarious. So the first couple of weeks, I think, were a mixture of trial and error. And then I just couldn't do it in the garage. The Wi-Fi connect wasn't right because the router is here in this room I'm in now, in my front room, in the lounge. So I said to my husband, I have to teach in the front room. So I've had it for 6 months now.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
So I just relocated in here. So all my Zoom is in here. And since then, completely stable, just a couple of glitches here and there. And then I started recording them for people who couldn't make it. And we've gone from there. So first 2 weeks, focus groups, second 2 weeks, endless questions. How do I get the Zoom app? How do I unmute? Because so many of my students had never even heard of Zoom.
Oh.
It's not, it's American, isn't it?
Yes.
So anyway, we got round it.
Well, good.
And now we're also is.
Yeah, well, I've gotten mixed feelings from yoga teachers. Some people really miss, being at the center and face to face, because you kind of feed off everyone's energy when you're there in person. But then there are some yoga teachers, mostly the ones that I know are more on the introvert side, that are finding the online teaching to be the most wonderful thing that ever happened. So I'm getting like a mixed, feeling from both sides. And I don't know, I mean, you can tell me, but I think from a business standpoint, if you do want to make money, I would think online teaching would give you a leverage, because you will get more money. I'm not really sure how much teachers get paid per class in the UK, but I would think from a teacher standpoint, if you're teaching online, even if it's $10 for a class online and you have 20 students logging in, I mean, that's kind of pretty good. What's your take on that?
Over here, if you're not going to work in a studio, you hire a venue. So do you do that in America? We hire a venue?
I'm pretty sure you can.
Yeah. So first of all, when you're on Zoom, no hire, no petrol, no vehicle cost, no time driving to studio. So 100%, the benefits are amazing. I think, Agnes, I'm lucky because my student body, I already know their bodies.
Yes.
So
that's an advantage.
I have a massive advantage because all of these students, I know their bodies, I know their health history, I know their life stories, I know every student's life story. So when they're in class and I can say, hey, Anne, be careful about your knee, or we're going to do this, just if you've got that tender back today, Sandra, just be careful. At the same token, I can say to somebody like Gemma, your hamstrings and your muscles are long. You can go into the advanced practice now. You know, so I can develop and guide them on Zoom because I know their bodies. The other thing I think is a good tip, Agnes, I wanted to give your listeners, if you want this to be a tip, is that at the end of the Zoom class, I offer Q&A.
Oh, that's nice.
So at the end, if you wish to stay, and this is how I do it, obviously I finish with my namaste and have a beautiful day, have a lovely week. And then I say, not on every single class, but at least 2 or 3 classes a week, I will say, stay online if you wish to stay for 5 to 10 minutes Q&A. If you don't have a question, you can stay to listen to the other person, or just stay for a chat. So,
Love that
then
idea.
I say, if you need to rush back to work, if you need to go and have a coffee, have your lunch, whatever, you can. I don't want people to feel they have to stay, but I have found this is a great way of creating that class community.
Yes.
Because you know how when you leave your studio, sometimes you gather in the changing room, or you roll up your mat and you have a little talk to the car park, or you walk out to the cafe.
Right.
In Zoom, you're in your own room, in your own house, so you don't have that chat to your mat buddy.
Yes.
So I have found that in my groups, we don't necessarily do a lot of talking before the class. We'll say hello, but we don't necessarily, but at the end, if it's appropriate, people will have a small conversation at the end, or they will ask me a question about something, and it sparks interest about what we're going to do next.
If there's a new teacher that wants to start their online Zoom classes, or whatever platform you use to record your videos, what type of equipment do you need? Do you just use your phone or a laptop?
I have personally found, Agnes, that this iPhone has been fine.
Okay.
And I've got the Rode microphone, the one that's been mentioned on the Yoga Teacher Resource Facebook group.
Okay.
I do also have, I've got to be honest, I have bought a very tall tripod with a proper camera light. So it's a proper, quite a big light that videographers would use. So for me, that was an investment.
What does that do? You're talking about the yellow round light?
No, this is a it's a light that can tilt. So it brightens the whole area that you're teaching in.
Okay.
So if for students that need to see a clear visual demo, it means your room is backlit, if that makes sense. So you have the backlit of the room.
Okay.
So some people use a lapel mic. I don't like that. I don't even use AirPods. No. I use the Rode mic, or however you pronounce that. It's about £75, I think.
Is that the square mics that you can just put under, like?
No, that's the one. The mic that I use, it looks like a proper microphone, and it fits on. I have a tripod.
Okay.
On top of the tripod is a frame that holds the phone and the microphone above it. So I don't need anything on my person.
Okay.
Because that microphone, which is on the tripod at the top, picks up everything clearly.
Nice.
And then to the side of my mat, so the mat is laid, to the side is the very high light that is above. It's like a big light that even photographers use. I'm sorry, I've forgotten the name of it.
No, I think I know what you're talking about.
All you need is a clear front camera on your phone, or a very good laptop with a good camera. Logitech is apparently good. I think you do need a tripod so that you get the angle, and I do think you need a light. So you need your phone or laptop, a good microphone, and a good light. So you really just need 3 things.
Yeah, that's simple.
Yeah. And then when you're on Zoom, if you want to record the class, it records it to Zoom, or it records it to the cloud, or it records it on your laptop. I record local. It's called local recording. So when I record it to my laptop, when the class finishes, after class, it will be there. I download it, and then I edit it, and then I upload it to YouTube. But you can upload it to Vimeo, you can upload it to other things like, there's a lot of teaching platforms you can upload to as well.
Okay. So another question, are you performing the movements as you teach online, or are you guiding them? Are you watching them?
I am demoing. I'm demonstrating, teaching, talking, and then I will cease a movement maybe and discuss, especially if there's a guided relaxation or a breathing technique. So I will mix it, Agnes, but essentially when I did my focus groups, all of my practitioners, apart from maybe one, said, and your listeners may be surprised because they may have made assumptions about what their clients want. They all said they found it mighty distracting to see everyone else in the room on the screen. And they actually said, we want to be in our mind, in our body. We want to see you, Roz, practicing with us and guiding us. And we don't want to see Shirley's leg.
Oh, I love it.
Because when you're in the class, which I teach in Venue as well, you know, we're all there, and that's the reality of normal life. But when you're in your own bathroom or bedroom or studio, and you know, I've got a client who actually practices in her bathroom. She said it's the best place where she gets quiet. She said, Roz, would you believe it? My mat is in my bathroom. And I said,
whatever works.
Whatever works. So some people also would like to come to early morning. Like when I do my first thing in the morning, my Pilates I teach, that person could be in their pajamas or their nightwear,
right.
you know, so they don't want webcam on.
Yes.
So because we did look at that, and the focus groups came back and mainly said, you know what, Roz, we are enjoying just being in the zone and working into our own practice, and then we will unmute and have webcam when we do the Q&A or chat.
Oh man, I love it. So you've gotten some great feedback, at least.
Yes, I think we also as teachers, we can get worried about the decisions we're making.
Yes.
Actually, if you ask your students or have a question and you're concerned, ask them. Just say, hey, you know, last week when we tried a more meditative class, or we all embraced X, how did you feel about that? And maybe if they say, well, it was fun to try it, Roz, but actually we prefer that style, or, you know, then at least you are secure in your next focus, if you like.
Yes.
You know, don't be afraid for them to say, you know, I didn't really understand that. Like, don't be afraid, I think, to ask them to give you that feedback.
Yes. Is the UK still closed in regards to like the gyms and the yoga centers?
No, we opened in July. And so I've been teaching in real life since July as well.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
And I'm at my studio as well, Agnes. I was there this morning actually covering.
Would you like to give an overview of your services as well as your Facebook group page?
Oh, I'd love to, Agnes. I just really want to say that obviously, like many yoga teachers, my primary concern is that people come to class, have a creative exploration of their movements, have a laugh, don't take it too seriously, enjoy and de-stress and get the most out of their movements. I do want people to get stronger. I definitely want people to be more flexible and get all the benefits. I want them to feel as if their digestion has improved. You know, I'm really happy that on a Wednesday night when I teach, people have the best sleep ever, you know, and that their insomnia is handled. Right. And then on one-to-one, I focus on back care, rehab, and hip replacements. I've worked with 3 students now that have had to have hip replacement, maybe through sport or through injury. And I've worked with pre and post-operative, so prehab and rehab, which is super important. It's very important to get into a good mindset before you go for your operation.
Yes.
And a good body state. And then I would say my new area that I want to work with is the mentoring. And so my yoga teacher group can be found on my Yogaros Facebook. So my Facebook page has a group attached to it. I've called it Yoga Teachers Together because it rhymes with YTT.
Oh, I love it.
So you go from your YTT to my YTT.
Yes.
And my plan at the moment, because we're all very, very busy, is that we have 2 catch-ups per week if necessary. So one would be maybe a one-to-one call. And if you want to phone, you can ring me with your query of the week. And then I will go live in the group via posting or a live and share some of the concerns or any of the tips. And then resources will come through, like maybe PDFs, you know, like warm-ups or just teacher skills, anything that I can. I have a huge library of work on my laptop.
Oh, I can't wait.
I have documents coming out of my ears, so I'm happy to
So I want to know, since you mentioned all these resources that you have,
Yes.
I always wonder, you know, especially when I interview yoga teachers, any book recommendations?
Of course, there are hundreds and hundreds.
Yeah.
I personally love going back to the ones that were on our training, even though it's a long time ago. So one of my favorites is Asana, Pranayama, Mudra, and Bandha. So I call it APMB, but it's the Bihar schools. It's a traditional text, and it just shows illustrations of poses, of breathing, of mudra, and of bandha. And it describes them, and it does describe them in a more classical way. But I have found that book like a Bible of yoga for me. I love that book. I also do love the Sutras, and particularly, Agnes, I love the Essential Yoga Sutras by Michael, I've forgotten his name, Michael Geshe and Christy McNally. I absolutely love that book. More recently, I adore A Life Worth Breathing by Max Strong. Have you heard of Max Strong?
No.
Oh,
Mike Strong?
It's Max, M-A-X.
Max.
Sorry, Max. And his surname is Strom, S-T-R-O-M. He's actually started a yoga teacher training. He's done it in London, and he probably does it in America as well. But he wrote a lovely book about his yoga journey, and he also recorded it on Audible. And he has a lovely voice. He's American. He has a lovely voice. And all of John Kabat-Zinn's books are amazing. So that's the mindfulness that I learned with him. And his book, Wherever You Go, There You Are. It's a wonderful mindfulness book. And he has so many just incredible practices. So I would say, I call him JKZ, but it's Jon, John Kabat, K-A-B-A-T, Z-I-N-N, John Kabat-Zinn. And he's like the father of mindfulness. He brought secular mindfulness around the world from about the 1970s.
Oh, wow.
And he had a stress clinic. I think he was originally at the University of Massachusetts.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, John Kabat-Zinn, and he has a lot of stuff on YouTube as well.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you would like to add or discuss that perhaps we didn't touch on today?
Newly qualified teacher, the NQT group, as I say, is on the Facebook page. There are not many members right now, but it doesn't matter. Every single person who wants to connect on there is going to be important to me. And I actually think, Agnes, if it's a smaller group, then I can serve that group better. So I'm not looking to have, 1,000 people on a Facebook group, frankly. Yes. That's why it's not a public group, it's private.
Yes. Thank you so much for everything that you spoke of today. I got so many golden nuggets from it. I wish you the best.
Thank you, Agnes. You have been so kind to me tonight, and I honestly, it's been amazing. And I think this is another good, positive outcome of 2020, the connections that we're making globally. And I want to leave you and your listeners with one lovely thought. In this year of challenging COVID, think more of what you've found and less of what you've lost. Namaste.
Beautiful. Namaste. Thank you for listening. Please visit the website at www.leveluptribes.com. And please subscribe to the podcast and share with your family and friends. Be sure to tune in to our next episode. Catch you all next time, my beloved tribes.